So, a question that I have for you. I mean, I would love to get to sort of. I think the question on many Top Chef fans' mind is sort of judging during your final episode. I really am wondering, Brian, how close you were there to actually kind of taking yourself out of the competition there, and what the thought process was when you're standing in front of the judges.
So the idea, I had a horrible day, and I did get to my breaking point. Obviously, the way that the service works is that there was however many people in the room, and we went out in three different groups, right? And like maybe the first group wasn't your judges group, but the next group maybe was your judges group. And the fact that when the judges plates go out, that's your best food. That's your best food.
Right.
Now, I had veal, loin, I had the sweetbreads. So maybe the stuff that's like 70% or 80%, not the best. Maybe the ends and pieces, that's going to the other guests.
Sure.
I care less about them, but the ones that go to the judges table, that's spectacular. That is my best. And and by doing the crazy duo and the idea of putting so many components on those dishes so perfectly and everything coming out exactly right, and then to have the heartbreaking realization that when you get there, your plates aren't on the table. And I'm always, as you've seen throughout the season, I'm a bit of a showman.
Little bit, yeah. I think a little bit is maybe a little bit of an understatement, Brian.
I believe that the story sells it also. Even
Sure.
in the restaurant wars, I'm the one that told Gregory, I was like, you got to write the story so that they're sold before they even take a bite.
Right.
I firmly believe that you have to understand why the restaurant's there and what's going on and why the dish was made. And I needed to sell the story because the reason I did the duo was because my understanding of Michael's was that it created the Santa Monica Farmers Market. It demanded all of this produce, and it demanded that, you get all this fresh stuff. But the dish I ate at Michael's had no produce in it at all. As Michael actually said, put something green in it. Put something green. So I wanted to use, it was pomegranate season and there's citrus going on. I wanted to use some of those elements, but truffle hates all of those things. So that's why I had to do it was almost like an appetizer of the sweet bread with a little bit of a sweeter component. And then it would flow into the more buttery, robust, veal loin with this really spectacular sauce and stuff on it. And so it wasn't that the dishes didn't taste well on the same plate. They didn't taste good when they swirled them all together.
Right.
So as soon as I realized that my plates weren't on the table, and then Patton was like, "What, Brian? Did it eat your tongue?" Like the first time I can't talk. I'm like,
I was going to say, right.
Oh, I can't explain how to eat the dish. And then at that point, production's going, "Why don't you go in the back and make them new plates? Like it's a mess. Make them new plates." And so I did go make them new plates, but they didn't let me go back out to explain to them. And Gail said you can't tell somebody how to eat a plate. And I was like, you can tell somebody how to eat a plate. I can say, eat this left side first, and then eat the right side. That's all I wanted to do, because that's the appetizer, and this is the entree, and it's a celebration of this entire dish.
That's very interesting. I mean, it definitely gives some context to what happened because, for how crazy this show is, and better than anybody, you were able to sort of maintain sort of your, happy-go-lucky kind of affable sense of humor the entire time. And it felt like that was the first real time we saw a little bit of a crack in it. I mean, looking back, were there any moments before the final challenge where you were close to sort of a breaking point? Because you seemed pretty even keel the entire time.
Well, no, you will remember up in the mountains cooking for the moms.
That challenge was something else. I felt like I was transported into that room with those moms.
So you have to understand that when we went from Restaurant Wars, which was one of the most demanding challenges of all time, I mean, 40 hours of pure exhaustion, right? They didn't even let us sleep for much before they whisked us off to the mountains to go give us a completely crazier challenge where we're up in the mountains, it's cold, we don't know what we're cooking, we don't know what we're walking into, we know it's breakfast, we know we're gonna have to get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and then the moms are outside our door singing until like 1 in the morning, like just hooting and having a good time. So we were crazy exhausted, and then the kaiseki meal, and then going into this Michael's things, I mean, we were exhausted.
Yeah, what a few weeks for you guys. I mean, as a viewer, I just kind of felt it, how tough it was, and also just the quality of the contestants, this season too. I mean, it looked like quite the trek for those 3 weeks for you guys.
And then as you get down to, the last 7 people, the last 8 people or whatever, there's a lot more pressure on everything, obviously. Early on, there's a little way to hide a little bit, take a day off if you want to, know. Like, I'm not going to win today, but I'm not going to lose,
Yeah, right.
As it gets crunch time, you're putting it all in every single dish, every single challenge. And so by the time it got to that, and I saw the plates all go to the different areas and trying to get that and knowing that the judges just didn't get my dish. And it's right there on the camera. You can see it. Tom literally takes my dish and stirs it together.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating because production knew I was making a duo. Everybody in that room knew I was making a duo, and the 2 dishes were on the same plate, not touching. It was a duo. And they're like, oh, I don't understand that. If the servers knew it was a duo, everyone knew it was, like, Tom needed to respect that. And at that point, I was really exhausted. And then there was some stuff that Padma said, that didn't make the cut. That was slightly embarrassing to me in front of my peers, because I know Brooke, I know Roy, I know all of these great chefs. And I felt like I was like a little line cook or a little sous chef, or maybe it was even the first season I'd competed where I hadn't really established myself in the industry. And I really felt I was being spoken down to and disrespected. And for the first time in my life, I was embarrassed to be on Top Chef.
Wow. Well, I understand that for sure. I mean, I think, though, if we can look back at maybe a bright spot of your experience, Brian, I think maybe one of the greatest success stories of the season is you finally conquering this damn ice cream machine. I mean, what a journey that was. I mean, it started off rough, but man, I admire you for going back to the well as you did, because by the end, it was like, okay, you're not scared of this thing. And by the end, it's like, wow, because I love that you were doing those interesting flavors and stuff. I thought it was really, really cool. So, I mean, that to me was one of the great success stories of the season.
That was pretty funny. A few times, I mean, the fact that I went there early in the season and kind of got the thing figured out, because I'm of the understanding, like, if you watch the show, like I watch the show, and I think the world watches the show, Padma's never going to let me win a quickfire. It's not going to happen. So I essentially took the quickfire as my training ground, right? Like, everybody else went right, I went left, And so it was so fun was that I almost did win with Sherry Yard. I almost won the dessert challenge. And for me to do that, that's hilarious. And that's because my ice cream was perfect. I made a cake, I made a sauce, and I made a relish or a topping all in 30 minutes. And the fact that I had the ice cream machine figured out by that time is pretty great. But it was pretty fun. All the ideas, the coconut curry, all of those. It was fun, kind of just getting to play with some really outlandish flavors.
For sure. So let's pivot from the show, if we can, for just a second before I let you go. I mean, I would love to ask about what's going on with all of your businesses now. I mean, because you have 500 of them and are, the one of the biggest guys in the restaurant world. This crazy, unprecedented time. I would love to know how difficult it's been and sort of where things sort of stand now with all your restaurants.
Well, just when we thought it was bad, it's gotten worse. So, it was very sad to see that Ludo's restaurant in L.A., Nancy Silverton, Susan Feniger's, all their restaurants were damaged in the last 24 hours in Los Angeles with, just irresponsible, throwing bricks through windows, looting and stealing like that. So that is very devastating. We actually had a watch on one of our restaurants last night that was involved in some altercations in San Diego. And as much as I feel and know that the Black Lives Matter needs to be addressed, it needs to be addressed without damaging people's personal property. And we need to come together as a community and address it. Certainly address it. But it was very scary for us last night just to make sure that we weren't getting looted on last night. So we're kind of standing down, just buckled up as usual. We've been waiting to try to see how restaurants are being introduced back into society. I think that when people daydream, and everyone tells me, I can't wait to get back to the restaurants. I'm so excited to get back to the restaurants. you're daydreaming about the restaurant you remember. You're not daydreaming about the restaurant of today. And that's with the plexiglass and the mask and the spacing. That's not what you're daydreaming about. And that's not what you're in a big hurry to rush back and get to. So we're not opening anytime soon until we see maybe some relaxation on some of these rules, or or maybe better alternatives. There's outdoor dining and stuff available, but we're also watching it to see if there's any resurgence in the pandemic. People are all going back out there. Let's not rush to go open the restaurant to do average sales. Let's make sure that when we get to the right point, we're going forward, in a positive direction. So we're just doing takeout from one of the restaurants right now. The PPP money is being reevaluated and reworked to work for our industry. So that's really big. It's going to give us the opportunity to kind of get out of the gates again and pay our labor and pay our rent and move forward with that. But again, it's almost safer sitting on the sidelines right now, watching how it unfolds. We like to think of ourselves as industry leaders. We were the first to close in Southern California before the government shutdown. Just realizing the safety of our staff and our guests. And we're not going to be we might just be the last ones to reopen. Because right now the only debt I have is to my landlords. And they're being very good and working with us, because in reality, who else is going to take these big spaces, and reopen some sort of anything in there. So they're being very understanding and working with us on that. But we're all just kind of sitting, watching to see how it works. Right now, the first people who open back up in the waves are the bars.
Right.
And you're hearing a lot of abuse and a lot of, they're overcrowding them. They don't care. They're serving a lot of alcohol. And we want to be responsible. We just shut down our entire community and our entire commerce for the last 3 months. Let's not jump to get things going again until we know we're doing the exact right steps.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to hear that you're taking the right precautions. It's such a difficult thing to know how to handle, and you know better than me. So I'm glad that you're staying safe with it. To wrap things up, I would love to ask, outside of your professional life, I would love to ask how quarantine has been for your home life. I can only imagine with 3 young kids, you got a family. It's what if things? Oh, we're gonna get a little visit. What have things been like at home in the Malarkey household?
This is the second most famous Malarkey. Oh, Mom made it on the show that one time.
I was gonna say,
but Sailor made like 3 or 4 appearances during the season.
Oh, hi Sailor, how's it going?
It was her birthday that we were saying happy birthday to her. And anytime, hey, Top Chef fans, anytime you see somebody doing that personal like happy birthday thing, the end is near. All right.
Not looking good. Well, yes, it's great to meet you, Sailor. I'm glad your birthday was broadcast to the world. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they was a picture of her in her softball gear and stuff. We're doing well. We're fortunate. We are fortunate. We're down here in Southern California and San Diego. I got my garage cleaned out. I'm sitting in here. It's my new room.
Looks great. Looks great.
And we're happy the beaches are open back up again, and we're getting some fresh air. So we just want to do what we can to get this world in a better place, and not just in the hospitality restaurant world, but equality and respect and love for everybody on this planet.
I love it. I think that's a great place to end. Thank you for your time, Brian. I mean, it was a pleasure to watch you this season. Best of luck with the businesses moving forward. I'm glad to hear that you're staying safe, and have fun with the family.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. Talk to you later.